on the computer. All right, there we go again. All right. Hi, welcome back to From Health to Happiness. This is interview number 2. Today I am live with Amber Temerity. Amber is a dear friend of mine. I met Amber quite a few years ago, and then she actually was managing my Pinterest account. She was the brainchild behind my part of my business, and then that all crashed. And unfortunately, I had to let Amber go, but Amber still stayed my friend. So anyway, so when I put out the call for women to come on here, whoever wants to join, Amber was one of the very first. And I was really, really thrilled by that, because I find Amber to be a very sincere, genuine, heart-centered woman. And I was very, very happy that she came on and decided to do this. So welcome, Amber. Thank you so much for joining us and for doing this for this event. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
We're just going to get right into it. I don't want to waste a lot of time, chit-chatting and stuff. So you are going to be talking us through today about the emotional and mental abuse that you suffered at the hands of your parents, which are the people that are supposed to love us, raise us with love and support. And you suffered emotional and mental abuse. So I just want you, if you could just take us back a little bit to your childhood, your upbringing. Like, how many siblings do you have? Like, tell us a little bit about just your initial upbringing.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Chicago and had a lot of family around. We were always, every weekend was spent, birthday party or a wedding or one thing or another. And my mom did have me when she was very young. She was 20 years old. My dad was 28. They lived with her parents for a long time. So they had a lot of support. And so you'd think with that support that I would have had a lot of love around me and a lot of support myself. Sure. But from the earliest memory, one of my earliest memories is everybody around me telling me what a terrible child I was, what a terrible baby I was, because apparently I was a high needs baby. I didn't sleep well. I always wanted to be held. And so that was the story from the get, was that I was a terrible baby who was spoiled rotten and who just bothered everybody.
So how old were you? You said your earliest memory. So at what age did you remember? What was that memory recall?
Probably 2 or 3. My little brother was born when I was 2.5, and I think before he was even born, I can remember being told what a terrible little girl I was.
Wow. So moving in, and I know as we get into 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that's what, for me personally, that's when more of the emotional mental abuse started. So when did it really get serious for you?
I don't remember a time where it wasn't serious. One of the earliest stories that I have from my parents as a baby was when I was an infant. So we're talking under 1. Again, my parents were both living with my grandparents, my uncle, because my uncle was 16 when I was born, and my great grandma. So it was a house full of people. Well, my parents, and this is again a story they told me because they like to laugh about it as though it was a joke. They both went to work one morning and forgot to tell anyone that they were both working that day. And so I apparently spent 6 hours just by myself.
How old were you?
I was under 1 because I could not. I remember they would joke. They said, "Well, at least you couldn't walk yet."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so that was, again, the kind of narrative I had where they found it funny. They found it funny that they left their infant daughter alone for 6 hours and that, whoops, we forgot.
So did you at any point, because did you feel like unloved, or geez, my parents really don't treat me very well? Or did you feel like, I don't think they really want me? Like sort of like, that kid in the corner where everybody just throws rocks at that kid in the corner because nobody likes him. Did you feel like unloved and uncared for and all, like, growing throughout the rest of your years?
It wasn't until I was older that I went, holy shit, like they really don't like me. Really? As a child, I was so desperate for that love, that it wasn't, oh, they don't love me, right? I didn't consciously recognize that. It was, what can I do to be better? How can I please them? How can I get that love? And so I was very much, and I think that led to me being almost neurotic today in terms of like what I do and how I do things, because I was a straight A student. I, even in high school, I didn't drink, I didn't party, I didn't have my first kiss until I was a senior in high school, because I was so afraid of being seen as wrong or being seen as bad. And so it was one of those things where, again, all throughout my childhood, all throughout my teen years, I did whatever I could to try and win their approval, to try and win their praise. And then still nothing. I was still that story of, you're a bad human being.
Wow. So I know you said you had a brother. Do you have other siblings too, or just a brother?
I have a brother, and then I have what are technically stepbrother and stepsister, but I don't like the term step. So I have two brothers who are both 2 years younger than me, and then a sister who's 4 months older than me. And of course, my stepbrother and stepsister didn't live with us because my mom had remarried when I was 6. And so they lived with their mom. They lived in a different state. I got to see them quite a bit. And they had a different dynamic because they only were around my mother once every other weekend, if that. And then my my blood brother is actually autistic. And so that was a whole different set of abuse for him, because they refused to acknowledge that he was autistic. They refused to acknowledge that he needed a different kind of support. And so he unfortunately ended up on a completely different life path. And again, really suffered a different kind of abuse than I did, but it was bad all around.
Oh, so so he was emotionally and mentally abused just as much as you were, though, but on a different level, because he had mental health issues. He had his own physical challenges that he probably didn't even understand himself as a child growing up. So your parents were just as mean to him as they were to you then.
Absolutely. And even after my parents split, my little brother, Lucas is his name, ended up living with me and, my mom and her new husband for a while, ended up having a mental break because part of it was she moved to a farm. And I think all of the animals were really too much of a stimulus for him. It was really overwhelming. And so he ended up going to live with my biological father. And my biological father is the worst of the worst. He was at one point physically abusive to us, really just went out of his way to treat us like garbage. And so I haven't had a relationship with him in well over a decade. I broke that cycle long ago, but unfortunately, my little brother didn't. And so they're living somewhere. I lost touch, unfortunately, despite many efforts, lost touch with them long ago. As far as I know, they're both still alive, but what they're doing, where they're at, I have no idea.
Wow. So I'm sure you must have tried, because I know I did personally as a child, to get my parents to love me. What do I got to do to make you love me? Just love me, please. And when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I was just a rebel and I just did my own thing. So at what point, when did you must have moved out early then? I'm sure you didn't live there very long. What age did you move out of your house?
Well, I was a year ahead in school. So when I went to college, when I was 17, I was gladly like, find me a dorm. I'm out, I'm gone. And I very rarely went back.
And what kind of a relationship did you have with your mother? Was it mostly your mother? Oh, right. Because you didn't have contact with your father after. So what kind of a relationship did you have with your mother as a young adult, like a college student? And then you became, then you got married and then you became a mom. Like, how was your relationship with your mom?
When I was in college, she very much, because I did exactly like you said, I wouldn't say I rebelled, like I didn't go crazy. But I was a very typical college student. I was, drinking easily every weekend, but let's be real, a little bit more than that. But I had a boyfriend all throughout college. So, but I had some sort of stability in my life, but the woman who birthed me saw it as me being crazy and I was partying too much, even though, again, I was still getting good grades. I was still, I graduated in 4 years. I did what you were supposed to do. I didn't go back to see her. I didn't really communicate with her. And it was during this time that she actually got divorced again, remarried for a third time. And her now husband, her third husband, is probably the worst of the three of them that she's been with.
No.
And he had never had kids. I was not welcome as seen as a relative of any sort in his eyes. And so it was after that point that our relationship really, she went out of her way to both disconnect from me, but also whenever she did try to connect with me, it was, well, you need to get your act together. You need to do better. You're not going to ever be good enough.
So it's kind of safe to say that you never really had any kind of love or support from your parents, like ever.
Right.
Wow. So growing up as a child, I know because we don't understand. Why don't my parents love me? Why are my parents treating me like this? Because my parents used to beat me all the time. I feel this is kind of wrong, but why are my parents doing this? But I didn't really fully understand the magnitude of it till probably like I was in my 20s, 30s, when I was desperately seeking love, because I wasn't getting it from my parents. I was desperately seeking love. So how did you, for you as a young adult, and then once you moved on and got married and you had kids, how did you cope with the fact that you were basically, and I'm not saying this to be whatever, as basically an unloved child? Like, how did you handle that? How did you deal with that trauma? Because that's very hurtful when you're trying to do your best in life and you can't go to especially your mom, for support or love or encouragement or, yeah, you're doing a good job. How did that make you feel?
I went a very unhealthy route for a number of years. After I graduated college, again, on paper, I was still doing everything right. I had I served in AmeriCorps for 2 years, which is the US version of the Peace Corps. I ended up working for PBS and had a really great career there. On paper, I looked like I was a success. What you didn't see was that I was drinking all the time. I was very much a barfly. I was making very, very unhealthy choices when it came to men. Again, like you said, just kind of seeking love wherever I could get little crumbs of it. And looking back, it makes me really sad for the girl, especially like in my early 20s. For that girl, I find myself, as I'm working through this healing journey on my own, kind of looking back and hoping that a different version of me, a different timeline can hear and feel not only that apology of, I'm sorry you couldn't love yourself enough, but also telling of, it's okay. It's understandable. You are allowed to have done what you did because you didn't know any better.
Exactly. Right. So at this stage of the game now, you still don't have a relationship with your mother or your father. Like you don't.
Correct.
You don't talk to them like ever?
Nope. Funny enough, I actually have a TikTok going viral somewhat right now that I posted just venting about something that the woman who birthed me did recently, and that she sent my kids a box of almost literal garbage, like just the filthiest, like physically filthy, dirty, dusty toys, sort of things that like smelled. And it's not because she's poor or feeble or anything other than she's careless and she wants to feed into her narrative of, well, I tried and nobody's responding. And so I posted a TikTok just venting, right? Kind of sharing my story of having a narcissistic parent, being a childhood trauma survivor. And now I've got literally hundreds of people commenting on this video going, yep, sounds familiar. That's exactly something my mother's done. Yes, I've had that exact same situation happen. It's a box of emotional manipulation is what it is. And the only reason that something like that even still happens is because even though I've cut ties with her, going on, I think almost 2 years now, even though I cut ties, I'm not going to force my kids, they're 6 and 7. I'm not going to bring them into an adult situation. And so even though they ask, why hasn't grandma called? She can. She is absolutely, she knows. And I put it in writing. I put it multiple times before I cut off communication with us. I said, you are welcome to call them at any point. You are welcome to write letters. You are welcome to reach out. She doesn't, because it requires effort on her part, because it doesn't feed into her narrative of, well, I try and nobody answers me. And so it's one of those things where at some point as they get older, they might reach out to her, and that's fine. I will do my best to keep them protected. And if she does step over boundaries that are not to be stepped over, that's when I'll step in. But for now, it's very much her and I have cut ties, and what happens from there happens.
Wow. So your kid, and I have to say, your kids are freaking adorable. I want to eat your daughter so much. So when they were born, did she make an effort, like, to be like, not the doting grandmother, but did she at least even make an effort for you as a new mom to even try to, like, be a mom, grandma, care, support, encouragement, anything?
No, she actually, when I was pregnant with my first child, if one of the names I had in mind was Amelia, because I
Mm.
love the name Amelia, and she didn't. And if you know anything about narcissistic people, especially narcissistic parents, they have to always have their way. And so, to ensure that I did not pick a name that she did not approve of, she named one of her donkeys Amelia.
What?
Because then if I did still happen to choose the name that I loved, she could laugh at me and make fun of me and say I named my child after a donkey.
Wow. Wow. So your kids actually do ask about her, like, but they don't really have a relationship with, like, have they met her? Like, have they been?
Yeah, she would come down periodically, because she lives about 2.5, 3 hours away now. And so she'd come to visit periodically back before I cut ties with her completely. And they'd see her. It got to the point where I had to really be present, because she would try to indoctrinate them. She's a Jehovah's Witness, and nothing
Oh,
against.
jeez.
Yeah, that was her third husband, converted her. And so I'd have to be mindful of that, because I just, that's not something I wanted my children indoctrinated to. Um,
Right.
but also I'd have to be really mindful around her husband, because he is very much like, he would only play with my son. He didn't want to play with my daughter. He would say very sexist, demeaning things. And again, this was when she was like 4. So it did get to the point where they really only communicated via phone. And then eventually she stopped making the effort. And again, my kids are 6 and 7. They're going to ask about her. And when they do, I say, well, you can call her if you want, but they don't. If the adult's not making the effort, the child's going to move on.
They're just
It
gonna
is what
forget.
it is.
So you have a biological father, obviously, and then you had 2 stepfathers. So how were you lived with your first stepfather, right? Because you
Mhm.
were still a child. So how was your relationship with him? Did he treat you like shit too? Like he did too, didn't he?
Yeah, it ended up being that he apparently cheated on my mom for basically the entire 13 years that they were together. And so he would come home from work, scream at me and my brother if the house wasn't perfect. If dinner, if I hadn't fed the dogs, just anything, right? And then he'd go and lock himself in the computer room, because that's what you called, back before there were computers in every room. He'd go and lock himself in the computer room and watch inappropriate things and just hide in there, and apparently find mistresses, until my mother came home. And then that would pretty much be the end of our day. We'd all go our separate ways and start
Wow.
anew again the next day.
Wow. So it's pretty safe to say that you had a pretty unloving, kind of shitty childhood. And many of us can resonate with that. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about, now you said you cut ties with your mom. Now you cut ties with your dad a long time. When did you cut ties with your dad?
He actually disowned me when I enlisted in AmeriCorps. He accused me of being a narcissist myself, because he didn't understand, and this was like almost a direct quote, I don't understand where your altruism comes from. Is it because you get a sense of being a good person. And like, basically he accused me of feeding into my own ego for serving my country for 2 years.
All
And
right.
yeah, so it was at that point I was like, I don't need that nonsense in my life. Again, we hadn't ever been super close because of the abuse throughout my entire childhood. And so it was in 2010 that I just went, okay, well, we're done. And
Right.
I haven't heard from him since.
Oh, he's never tried to reach out or nothing like
No.
that. Out of sight, out of mind. So let's talk a little bit about, we want to get into the healing now, because you are, and I always, in my experience, because they always say that we are a product of our upbringing, and the generational trauma just keeps going on and on until somebody breaks that trauma, right? That curse, the
Mhm.
generational curse. And for me, the curse stopped with me, because I wasn't going to raise my kid the way my parents raised me. And I can see you, because I follow you on Facebook. You are an amazing. Your kids are adorable. You and your husband. I don't really know him, but I can see the interaction. You guys are just a tight, loving, crazy, cool family. So at what point, when did you start your healing journey, when you realized, okay, I'm not going to have it. I don't have parents. I'm not going to have any relationship with my mom or dad. That part of my life is basically over. I've had to cut that, but you still need to heal from that. It's still trauma. And we still need to heal from that, because we need to heal from all our deep inner wounds. So talk us about your healing. How did that start? And when did it start? And what did that look like for you?
It really started when I finally said enough to my mother. And this happened, I want to say it was before the pandemic hit, or right around then. So maybe March of 2020, because she was posting some very, very hateful things on Facebook, and just going out of her way to basically say that I was a bad mother and that I was raising my children to be bullies and just all sorts of nonsense. And so I said,
What?
yeah, I don't want to get too into it because part of it was political, but basically it was, I'm the bully. I'm the hateful person. And so
Wow.
it was at that point that I said, okay, we can't do this anymore. I'm not going to have you, like, I think that was my tipping point. Is like, you can do whatever you want to me, but if you bring my kids into it, we're gonna have to, that's my end point. That's where I'm gonna go, no, we're done here. And so after that, I went into a deep dark hole for a
Mm.
while, because I was convinced that I was unlovable, that if my own parents couldn't love me, how could anybody else? And you're right. I am happily married. I've got an amazing husband he loves me, and my kids love me. But beyond that, like, the idea of I don't matter really played into my head. I began to have suicidal ideations. I really just went dark, very depressed. And as a result, really started again turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms, was
Right.
drinking a lot, just wasn't doing anything other than existing. My husband, again, once the pandemic hit, was working from home. And so I didn't have to really do anything. And so there were days where I'd sleep in until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I could, and I didn't have to, again, do anything other than exist.
Right.
And finally, December 1st, actually, of 2020, I was drunk. I was just again in a very dark place. And it almost, again, I fully believe that our future selves are a version of our higher selves. And that when we speak back to the past, like I said earlier, where I speak back to my 20-something-year-old person, I know that there's a future me, or even right now, this present me, speaking back to that December 1st girl, telling her, okay, you need to stop this. You need to wake up. You need to start making healthier choices. You need to be the person that you are, not the person that your parents claim you to be. And so it was that night that I went, okay, we're doing this. And so I quit drinking. I started, it started slowly but surely incorporating exercise back into my life, and just moving and existing and being more present. And then just really working through, I read a lot of books. I, of course, read a lot of amazing blogs like yours,
Yes.
really just filling my life with as much positivity as I could to start to reframe my mindset to be the healthy, strong person that I know I'm meant to be. And, kind of just moving from there and really just giving it my all and doing what I could to, again, be the woman that I was born to be and be the powerhouse that I'm meant to be, that we are all meant to be. And so just every day, is a new day, and every day is one step closer to healing. And I don't know that I will ever be able to say that I'm fully healed, because I don't think as human beings that that's something any of us can ever claim.
I don't think so.
But again, each day brings me closer to a better, stronger version of myself.
Nice. So when you were going through, is it safe to call it a depression that you went through, a dark
Mhm.
place? So did your husband recognize that? Did he understand that you were going through this dark thing because of, disconnecting from your mom and everything? And how was he as far as understanding and supportive and getting at that's what you were going through? How was that?
He absolutely saw it. And it's embarrassing to say, but I think my kids saw it to a certain extent. My son, who was in first grade last year, would often be like, "Mommy, why did you sleep until lunchtime?" And I would just tell him, "Oh, well, mommy was up late working." And sometimes that was true, but a lot of times it wasn't. It was
Right.
just, and but my husband had, he's got anxiety himself. He's got, his own struggles that he works through. And so I think for him it was, well, what can I do to just keep her existing? It wasn't, because there isn't anything anyone else can do, especially when you're depressed or struggling with substance abuse issues or anything like that. There's nothing any other human can do other than say, yes, I'm here, I support you. But when it comes down to it, it's a choice you yourself have to make. And we all have that power within ourselves. We all have that strength. And so finding a way to finally be able to tap into that is the only way things are going to change.
And that's hard to do because we just want to stay and wallow in our misery because it's easy to just curl up in a ball and cry and go, I don't feel like dealing with today. Fuck it. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? So it's easy to stay in misery. And everybody says, oh, you're so brave and you're so courageous. No, it's really hard work to take that first step to go, no, I'm not staying in this dark place anymore. I need to get out of here before it swallows me whole. So taking that even if it's a tiny step, like picking up a free ebook that, a little empower, that's a hard thing to do when you're in a dark place. So kudos for you for realizing that, making that, recognizing that, because I think a lot of people struggle with just take that first step, that's the hardest step, but you have to take that. So you decided, so you said it was December 2020 where you said, okay, this is retarded and I can't do this anymore and I need to start. So now we're September 2021. So you're almost 9 months into your healing.
Yeah, I'll be 10 months sober, 10 months in my healing journey as of October 1st.
Yay. And can I say, it looks like you lost a little bit of weight. Am I correct here?
Yeah, I'm 40 pounds down. I want to lose another 60, but the 40, like I actually went to the doctor today and she was like, you, in just 4 months, like I've dropped 40 pounds. And she was like blown away. I was like, yeah, again, every day is a choice and we're getting there. Yeah. Each and every day.
Yeah. I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to finish this without mentioning to you that I have noticed that you did lose weight and you look amazing all the time anyway. But you made a very good point. You said that because we're healing and the healing never ends. Like, I think you're always healing. There's always going to be even like a teeny tiny little trigger that just comes out of nowhere. You could be tripping along through your day and having a great day and everything's good. And then this little thing comes out of nowhere and then it sets you back 5 paces and you're like, well, what was that? So your healing journey never ends. So what kind of things are you doing like each day still up to this point for your healing journey? Is it just eating healthy and taking better care of yourself? Are you meditating, journaling? Like what other kind of healing tools do you have in your arsenal right now that maybe you can share with everybody else?
I go on a walk every single day.
Mm.
As soon as I drop my kids off at school, I immediately, like, sometimes I go to school and I look like a total like ragamuffin. Like I've got my hair a mess, wearing like a raggedy shirt and shorts, but that's because I am immediately taking my butt to the park and I'm going on a walk. And even if I only go, one block, which I never do, because right once we get started, we keep going. But every single day I go on a walk. I do fill my life with a lot of positivity. Again, in terms of what I read, as you know, I love TikTok. I'm obsessed with TikTok. I am constantly on there watching, different affirmations, different meditations, just different videos of people living their best lives and also sharing stories like we are with this, of their healing, being able to relate, being able to, what is it, Brene Brown with the sharing of the shame, being
Yeah.
able to do that and have that empathy really goes such a long way. And like you said, there are absolutely days where I'm extra emotional, where I feel that almost addictive pull of being in that dark place because it's so much easier. And
Sure.
that's such a weird thing to say because it's not when you're in it. It's, you feel like you're drowning, it's the worst, but there are times where it's like, no, it's easier. It's easier to just be sad. And so the other day I, again, with my little TikTok, posted a video of just, again, venting and sharing a quick 1 minute, just, I'm having a hard day. Like, can somebody please just send me some heart emojis? Send me, like,
Oh,
again, even just putting it out there,
yeah.
even if nobody responds, having that little mini vent session helps, because not only am I in the moment venting, but now I can look back at it a few days later and go, okay, that was a hard day, and that's okay.
Mhm.
I'm better today. I'm moving forward. And that really helps.
Yeah, and you made a point. You said it's easier to stay in the dark place than it is than to not. And you're absolutely right. It is super easy to just stay in the corner, in the ball in the corner crying, than it is to actually change. Because if we want to be happy, if we want to improve, it takes work, and work takes change. And a lot of us, oh, it's too much work. I'm just going to stay dark, because it
Mhm.
is hard work to improve your life. It is hard work to heal. And it is ugly and messy and frustrating. And I think Robin Sharma, it's messy in the beginning, ugly in the middle, and gorgeous in the end, right? Like, it's tough to heal. And people, and I'm not saying everybody, obviously, I wouldn't do that, but people choose to stay in the dark place because it really is easier to stay there. It is,
Mhm.
and that's the fact of the matter, and it's sad, but that's the truth, because it's hard to change. So if you had to, we're going to wrap this up. I love your story though, and I just wanted to say again, because watching you on Facebook, so I don't really follow TikTok because it's all Spanish, because I'm in Guatemala. So every time I fire up TikTok, I see like Spanish babies doing all this crazy stuff. So I don't follow TikTok, but I follow, and I mean, you are an incredible mother. You're an incredible human being. I see you, helping the homeless people and all that stuff. So you have become an amazing, amazing, strong, powerful woman, because you're also an entrepreneur. You run your own business. And I don't want to leave this without talking a little bit about that. You were a teacher, right? So you were a teacher, and then you gave that up, and now you run your own online business. Am I right?
Well, I worked in higher ed. Yeah, I
Right.
worked in higher ed for 7 years, and then I'd been a hobby blogger for since I was 11, because I was, again, that little girl who wanted to be invisible, and the only way that I could make any sort of connection was to be sharing online. And so I was, hiding away in my computer room, learning HTML and all about blogging and all of that. And so then, yeah, in November of 2015, I decided I'm going to give it a go for real. And by April of 2016, I was able to walk away from my career in higher ed and launch, I run a successful blog now that's still good and going. And then I teach other women how to do the same.
You do. So I think it's good to note that, independent of the trauma and feeling, nobody loves us, we feel no self-love, We have no self-confidence. We don't think we can do the hard things like run our own business, which clearly you can. So I think you're an excellent example and a role model for women who are feeling like they're not good enough. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I can't do the hard things. Yeah, you can, because Amber is a clear example that, yeah, you can do the hard things. You can find, you can heal and find self-love and find your confidence and be the woman or the person that you truly want to be, because Amber has done it. So and kudos to you, because I think you're an amazing person. So I just want to close. If you had um, one of your best tips or tools for anybody who's dealing with trauma from emotional or from childhood abuse, if you had any one piece of gold tool or advice, what would you tell them?
If you can't get out of bed, if you can't get moving, if you are really just stuck in that dark place, grab your phone, because we all, we're still, even in the dark place, we still mindlessly scroll, and find yourself a place where you can scroll through happy things, where you can scroll through empowering things, whether that's TikTok. I don't know that I would say Facebook. Facebook is not, watching YouTube videos there. I mean, just anything. Again, if you like to read, finding blog posts, like, again, like you said, downloading a free ebook, any little bit that you can do, even though, again, I know that in that dark place, the last thing you want is positivity. The last thing you want is somebody in your face going, you can do it.
Right.
Then find stories of empathy, find stories, again, like we're sharing with all of these from Hell to Happiness. Find stories of other people who have been able to do it, who you can relate to, because just that little bit of, oh, they get it, that can be the catalyst towards that, taking that next step of getting out of bed, getting moving, changing your life for the better.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I know, and you know too, what it's like to be in that dark place, and it's easy to stay there and it's hard to get out. So it's all about taking that tiny little baby step. You're absolutely right. And we don't always want sunshine blown up our butts, right? We just want to stay in just let me cry. My life sucks. I just want to stay here. And we don't want happy people. But even if you just take 30 seconds, read an inspirational quote from Brene Brown, 30 seconds. And it's like, oh, and just maybe go back and read it again, in 10 hours or the next day or whatever. So, thank you so much. So if you do, I actually, whoever's watching, all of you watching, I do encourage you to please check out go to fromhelltohappiness.com, click on Amber's beautiful picture on the site, and take a minute and go check out her links. She runs Thrifty Guardian is all about, isn't it all about like saving money and budgeting and all that, trying to get out of debt and live debt free and all that stuff. So just please go check out Amber's links. They are on the website from helltohappiness.com. I will drop links as well, but go check her out. Click on her beautiful face. Amber, thank you so much for taking time. I love your story. I love your healing. And I mean, I love you as a woman, and your family is adorable, but I do really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this for me and for women around the world. I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.